Now, one of the best parts about this platform is that it's model agnostic. And any solution that you're using, be a chatbot, a workflow, an agent, the model is kind of like the system's brain. It receives inputs and prompts and then produces outputs. But in this sort of scenario where you're integrating it into a workflow or an agent, it does more than just generate texts. It can choose what knowledge base to query, it can choose what tools to call, it can choose the results of a conditional statement, which means that it becomes the brain of your operation, the brain of a system. And the best part about this platform in that being model agnostic is you can choose what brain you want to put for different functions and features of your solution. In certain instances, if you have a very complex prompt or very complex use case, you want to use a brain that's probably fit for purpose, that's more sophisticated in nature. Sure, it will cost more, and sure, it will have more latency, but at least it gives you the right answer. Whereas if you're creating something very simple like a slogan generator, then you don't want to use an advanced brain because you're just paying for nothing. Instead, you want to use a dumb model that's fast and that costs peanuts. So that's one of the things to take into account when you're choosing the brain of your operation. And the best part about this system is that it's completely model agnostic. Over here, I have an LLM leaderboard. It's called llm-stats.com. It's a great leaderboard that basically ranks every single model that's out there and gives you a lot of information about that. It gives you different scores like the GPQA, the MMLU, which basically tracks a lot of large language tasks and things like that and kind of ranks them appropriately. And you can see in here, for example, the model. There's also one that has the costs as well. Like it shows you which ones cost a lot of money versus which ones don't. We can see, for example, that O1 Preview, a great model, right? It scores very high on the MMLU, so it's very good at language-related tasks, but it's very expensive. It costs $15 per million input tokens, which is a lot. And the one good thing to remember too is that the context length also matters. So if you have a task where you don't have a lot of input, then you want to use a low context model. But if you have a model that has to like read an entire book and then answer a question without using a sophisticated technique like RAG, then you might want to use a model like this, Gemini 2.0 Flash Thinking, which can take 1 million tokens as an input. So in summary, models have strengths and weaknesses, and this platform allows you to choose between different models. Let's see how that works. Go ahead and create a text generator application. I've already done mine here, so I'm just going to click it to open it up. There we go. There's my text generator application. And in each one of these applications, you have the choice to select different models from the top right. So in this case, the default is 3.5 Turbo, which is a pretty old model now. It's a pretty weak model. It can't really handle sophisticated language tasks and gets confused with when you ask it math questions or logical statements. But it's a good model for if you just want simple answers, in this case, just generating slogans. But we can change that. So you can just click this button and then flip between 3.5 Turbo to 4.0 Mini and so on and so forth, which is great. Now you can go one step beyond that and go to model provider settings, and you can see that this platform has the scaffolding to integrate really as many different models as you'd like. You can install models from Bedrock, OpenAI, Azure AI Studio. We have courses on all of these, Gemini, Ollama, DeepSeek, Moonshot, and so on and so forth. Again, they have advantages and disadvantages. DeepSeek, for example, is a great model because it costs very close to nothing. And it's also a great model because it can do very sophisticated reasoning tasks, right? Gemini has a great photo editing model if you're interested in that sort of task. So again, it really depends on what you want to do. Now, with each one of these things, you don't get them for free. What you need to do is when you install them, you need to provide an API key. So for example, if you have an Azure AI Studio account, you go to that account, you get the API key, and then when you click install, it will ask you for that API key. For example, let's use Anthropic. Anthropic has a fantastic model called Claude. In fact, it's one of the highest in terms of, I'm not sure what this is ranked by GPQA, right? Claude 3.7 Sonnet is a fantastic model. It's one of the most advanced models that's out today. So what you can do here is you can go to Anthropic's website, right? What I did is I just went to anthropic.com. I signed up for an account. I then created I basically put money into it, right? I put some money into this account so I can get the API key, and then I basically got the API key here. Now, when you generate an API key, you have to remember it, because otherwise, if you forget, then you need to regenerate one. So I'll just call this my second key. I'll click add. I'll copy the key. Great. Okay, so now whoever has my API key can use my developer account for Anthropic and can actually call the model, and it will deplete the $5 that I've added in. So remember to protect your API key, and you can always delete it or disable it if you want to as well. In my case, I have the API key. Now I need to set it up. So I'm going to go to Anthropic. I'll click Setup. It asks me to enter my API key, which I will do so here. And then it also asks me my API URL. Now, to get that, you can go ahead and go over here to the API reference. And really, that's the API URL right here. Okay, so go ahead and copy that. I think we just need the v1. Let me see. Okay, and then click Save. Not found. Okay, I think we might need to do this instead. There we go. Okay, perfect. So now we've installed Anthropic. And by installing, all it means is that now this platform has the capability to call Anthropic models using your account, right? So now if I click Show Models, I have access to all of these different models now, 3.5, 3 Haiku, and so on and so forth. Okay, so now I can go in here, click this button, and you can see I have all of my Anthropic models installed. So if I want to use 3 Sonnet, I can do that. And, type in whatever I want here and click Publish, and it'll actually run the model. So in this way, you can choose to change the brain of any single large language model task to really whatever you want it to be. And the best thing about this is that you can choose to, in addition to that, we'll talk about that part later. But let me just get rid of this guy here. Debug a single model. What you can choose to do as part of that is install additional models from other model providers as well. So you'll never be outdated. That's why I don't like using, platforms where you're tied to a model like Claude or OpenAI, because there might be another one that comes along that's better. Whereas here, you know that you're going to get the best because you can just choose to use any single API.